अर्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराण मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीं सम्पत्त्वामनुसन्दधा भगवते भवद्वेषिणी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. In the present portion that we are seeing in the 4th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Geetā, Lord Krishna describes 14 kinds of spiritual practice. Do not be scared by the word yajna. Do not say, oh, these yajnas are not for us. He uses a big word, a technical word from the Vedas, namely yajna, but he actually uses it in a very broad sense. When you take a look at the 14 yajnas given here in 5 verses, you will find that many more of noble activities that you may do in life can also be called a yajna. Suppose you are helping some poor students go through their education by some financial help or any other kind of help. That is also yajna. Suppose you are helping some noble cause in the society. You take the cause of some oppressed people and ensure that they get justice. You prevent the oppressors from exploiting the weaker sections. That is also a yajna. In other words, at home or outside, while traveling or while in town, day or night, anywhere, anytime, when there is a certain letting go of personal comfort, letting go of your pleasure, your enjoyment, for the sake of something nobler, which could be your own higher self. When you sacrifice the lower self for the sake of the higher self. At 11 a.m. one morning, you feel like having a strong cup of coffee, which you are used to. But you then say, well, I am now above 50 or above 60, I better reduce my coffee and tea. Instead, you go for some tulsi herbal tea. You have sacrificed the demand or the gratification of your tongue, which was asking for coffee or tea and so on, and you went for some herbal tea, which, going by your habit, eventually you may like it more than anything else, but at present, suppose you are not very fond of, you take it. So whenever you go for a lifestyle change, you change your ways of living, habits. All of them is yajna only. So you must understand the spirit of yajna that Sri Krishna presents before all of us, making Arjuna a mere pretext. We saw in the last 2 or 3 classes some 5 of the 14 yajnas. And the 5th one was amazing, where there was an expression, Juhvati Jnana Deepite. Some people offer all the functions of their sense organs, organs of action, their pranas, etc., into the fire, Agni, of Atma Samyama, self-control. All that is fine. That was pretty much what was said before. What is special in this fifth yajna? Agnau, in the fire, Jnana Deepite, which is lit with the oil of Jnana, the right seed, wisdom. We had quoted Adi Shankara, who says Jnana Deepite means Snehena Iva, by oil, Pradike, when a lamp is further fed with oil, with the fuel, then the lamp burns more brightly. Likewise, by satsangs, by giving lectures or listening to Gita lectures, Viveka Vijnana, our ability to distinguish between true and false, between eternal and ephemeral lights, or burns more brightly. Ujjvala bhavam apadite pravilapayanti tyartha. So you have attended a Gita class, let's say morning 7 a.m. and I gave the example of going for green tea in place of coffee. Then your Viveka starts operating. So part of your mind may say, oh, I should not have attended this lecture. Now this is going to cause a conflict to me at 11 a.m. The mischievous side of you will find fault with the Gita class itself. But the good side of you, of all of us have bad and good sides. The good side of you says, a good reminder for me. And at 11 a.m., because the early morning 7 a.m. Gita class lit up the flame of Viveka, you are about to reach for the instant coffee or filter coffee or Colombian coffee or, oh, those brands are exciting, much advertised. You say no. So, Jnana Deepite, I am giving a very simple example. In fact, Jnana, Viveka can operate on much higher levels. Much higher levels. Instead of the approach of I win and you lose, if you go for win-win, let both of us be victorious. Instead of going for causing sorrow to people, you bring joy. Like the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi goes, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is sorrow, let me bring joy. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Lord, please help me understand rather than insisting on being understood, etc., etc. All those places, what enables you to go for the higher option is Viveka. And alas, in the overwhelming majority of humanity, this lamp of Viveka is not burning at all. The lamp of Viveka has been put out, has been extinguished long back. Therefore, the crime. So the 22-year-old boy stands on a rooftop in Highland Park, a northern suburb of Chicago, yesterday or day before, and shoots. It rains bullets on a bunch of people going on an Independence Day march, and 6 people die, many others are injured. What had happened to that 22-year-old boy's Viveka? Extinguished. The lamp of discrimination, lamp of seeing what is right and what is wrong, had been put out. And why blame those young people? Many heads of state, including the so-called developed countries, go around their international agendas, and for them, lives of innocent people in poor countries do not mean anything at all. It is said millions of civilians have been killed by various wars, in the various wars waged by United States and other countries. A month before, the pilot who was on the little plane which put the atom bomb on Hiroshima died. A month before he died, he was interviewed. It was 2005. The bomb was dropped, as all of you know, in 1945, August. But he was interviewed in 2005, somewhere in June or so. I think in July or so he died. And when he was interviewed and he was asked, after all these 60 years, after you dropped that atom bomb on Hiroshima in Japan, do you feel some remorse, some regret? Do you repent? And with chest up, he said, not at all. I am a soldier. I am proud about what I did. Foolish fellow. He could have jolly well said, I did my soldier's duty, but one sentence. But as a human being and doing something where 150,000 people died and an equal number suffered from various ailments. Newborn children were born with some handicaps or some disease and so on. I feel bad about it, but I did my duty. Let him say he did his duty. God bless him. But could he not add one sentence? I do feel regret that this had to happen at my hands. No, his Viveka Pradeepa was put out, was extinguished. So, civilians, innocent people. To conclude that example, when I had an opportunity to spend 2 hours in the Hiroshima Museum in 2016, I've forgotten a lot of things, but one thing that is fresh in my memory is there was a mention of a, I think, 8-year-old girl who was not far from where the bomb had fallen and who was doing well all the same. So the media praised her. Wow, what an immunity and what some kind of strength. She is unaffected. She was within a few miles, and many people in that radius had developed all kinds of health issues. Some people died after a while. This girl, school-going girl, in her school, she was highlighted in some function. She was not far, but she's fine. She's fine. How long? There was a board there that this girl, who then went around and many places, maybe give short talks and whatnot. If I remember right, at the age of 18 or so, was diagnosed for some cancer or something, and then passed away. So some died instantly, some died within a few days or weeks, some died after some more time, and this girl died after another 10 or 11 years. Okay, so what happens to you and me, whether we represent superpowers or represent a little village of illiterate people? Makes no difference from God's point of view. Viveka. If Viveka, the lamb, is put out, alas, then not yajna. The opposite happens. When Jnana Deepite, Pradeepe, Ujjvala Bhavam, Apadite, these sadhakas do this yajna, Atma Sanyama Yoga Agnav, Indriya Karmani, Prana Karmani cha Yuhvati. Now in the next shloka, probably Sri Krishna himself feels that the readers might be wondering how many more is he going to tell us when is a new topic starting. So you and I have a certain weakness. With great enthusiasm we join classes, Gita class, Upanishad class, Bhagavatam class, some class. But after some time our mind says, when will this be over? When will our teacher take a new text? You want old wine in a new bottle. So if that thought came, Sri Krishna sensed it, I guess. So he says, okay, in the next shloka, I am giving to you 5 yajnas at one go. 5 yajnas. Dravya yajnas, tapo yajnah, yoga yajnas, tatapare, swadhyaya jnana yajnascha, yataya samshita vrata. He calls all of them yati. You go to some holy place like Kashi or Ayodhya, Dwarka or Mathura, Vrindavan, holy places. Go to Kashi or Kanchi. Go to holy places and you make material offerings to the needy, to give clothes to people who have no clothes to wear, give food, give monetary help, and so on. Dravya yajna. Then people who do this are called dravya yajna. This is an adjective to the sadhakas themselves. Sanskrit language permits such structures. Dravya yajna is not yajna, but those who do the dravya yajna. Tapo yajna, another group of people. They are called tapo yajna. So it's called bahuvrihi samasa. Tapaha eva yajnaha yesham te. Such people in whose case austerity itself is the spiritual practice. So tapaha could be of many kinds. Fasting, observing silence, not taking certain things in, not going for particular enjoyments. Tapaha. For all this, there is some kind of inconvenience that we cause to ourselves with an understanding. People fight against their own habits. There was a person who used to conduct discussion groups on Bhagavad Geetā, but slowly a complaint arose about him or against him. And he talks all the time. He doesn't let others speak. The group discussion was on every Thursday in the evening, let us say, and he used to speak out of 90 minutes. He used to speak 80 minutes. 10 minutes only. He was gracious enough to give others. If somebody else, a lady or a gentleman, tried to interrupt, I want to say, he would say, he was the moderator, he was the group sevak. Wait, let me complete what I am saying. And he never completed. He would go from one thought to another, many a time irrelevant also. Instead of talking on Gita, he would talk about how it was for him to visit France 3 years before, how he liked such and such places in Paris, Rama Rama, and all others used to. So, but he came to know. Then he said, I'm going to do a tapaha. It was a tapaha for him. What? In following group discussions with great difficulty, he ensured that he would speak in the first 10-15 minutes and he would speak in the last 10 minutes. In between, he kept not a wristwatch, an old style mechanical clock in front of him. It would say tick, tick, tick sound also it would make. So the class starts at 6 o'clock. 6 to 6:15 he introduces the topic. 6:15 stop. Anybody speaks, he would say, what do you say? Pass it on to the another lady. And this lady asks a question to this gentleman. He passes on. What do you say? Come on, try to answer this. Last 10 minutes again. There is also tapaha. Maybe you may call it mauna yajna or vag yajna. Vag means speech. So tapaha, it comes under tapaha. In the 17th chapter, Sri Krishna mentions there is 3 kind of shariram tapaha, vangmayam tapaha, manasam tapaha, and all these 3 on the levels of the body, speech and mind can be done in a sattvic way, where you don't worry about results. Rajasic way, where anything you do, you ask questions. What do I get in this? What will I gain? Very, very falakankshi. And the third one is to perform some so-called good things in an idiotic manner, mechanically. Mind is somewhere else, and you are looking at other things. You are performing a puja at a temple, and you are looking around. Who are the people from the town who have come? And hope they are looking at me. They are noticing that I am performing one puja which is very expensive. I have paid so much of money here, and that's how this puja is going on. That is tamasic. So tapaha also can be done in tamasic way. Look at the breadth of thought in the Gita. So rajasic, tamasic, and sattvic kinds of tapaha, and that tapaha on physical, vocal, and mental levels, 3 into 3, 9 kinds of tapas are given in 17th chapter among 100 which are possible. Those who do such tapaha are called tapo yajnaha, yoga yajnaha. So yoga, asana, pranayama, and so on and so forth. There are some who regularly do, regularly. And you see in them a certain difference. Everywhere we meet people who are very regular in yoga. They may not be very intellectual sometimes. Sometimes they may not have knowledge about various things. But the way they sit, the way they walk, and so there is a certain glow on their face. And intellectuals write well, speak well, and have an answer to every question. Many a time, some intellectuals do not have certain shine on their face. And what is more, you notice they are very attached to various pleasures and comforts. And there are some intellectuals, when you invite them, you won't give them a wonderful room with air conditioning and this and that. They even protest and they walk away. The professor in Varanasi came to our guest house of the Krishnamurti Center. A lot of people admire that place by the bank of Ganga, and there is a lot of greenery, simple cottages, sattvic vegetarian food is served. He fretted and fumed. I have come as either for a conference or as a member of the interview panel at the college that we have in that campus. What is this? There is no AC. And what is this? There is no menu except roti, chawal, and 2-3 things. Rice, rotis. He wanted the wide range of menu. Then the college said, "Oh, no problem, we'll arrange." So they arranged this room in a, if not 5-star, some 3-star hotel in Varanasi. The college bore the expenses. He was an intellectual. He was later on in the interview, people appreciated. He asked very hard questions to candidates and evaluated them thoroughly, and then gave a good recommendation. Take this lady as the assistant professor. That was to select assistant professors, which is nowadays the entry point. Olden days lecturers. Now everybody with a PhD or some other qualification joins as assistant professor. So we find yoga yajna. Let me not go far. Yoga yajna. Yoga is those physical and breathing exercises combined with some norms of living. Yama and niyama are ethical, moral laws that people follow. They are also wonderful. Sri Krishna endorses them, blesses them. Then 9th one is Swadhyaya Yajna. Some regularly study on their own. Of course, often occasional guidance from gurus, otherwise they study on their own. Jnana Yajna. Some even go to deeper meanings and maybe they share the meanings with others. So, 5 kinds. All these are Samshita Vrata. And Shankara Bhāshya is not mere repetition of what Sri Krishna has said, but throws light on some of these yajnas, whereby we understand better than before. Dravya yajnaha, tirtheshu, dravya viniyogam, yajna buddhya kurvanti. Now, to refresh your memory, why do we call this yajna? In a literal yajna, there is fire and you offer something, and what you offer vanishes into the fire, gets burnt. And as reward of that sacrifice, in the literal yajna, Devata, Varuna, Indra, and others who bless you with various benefits. So, in an extended sense, you offer something of relatively less value in a certain spiritual practice. That practice is the fire, and you get some higher benefits. Instead of enjoying sleep for another hour or two, you wake up, freshen up, and do 45 minutes of asana and pranayama. So the physical comfort is the ghee that you offer. Has some value. Ghee is not worthless. So the comfort has some value, but you sacrifice the comfort of the bed early morning, and in the spiritual practice called asana, pranayama, and so on, that is fire, what do you get? You get greater emotional stability. You get better health. You live longer. You are not a burden to others with this pain or that body ache all the time. So it's a higher benefit. Put something of lower value into the fire of a certain well-defined spiritual practice and stand to gain some better benefits which are lasting, which help you all through life, even in your old age and so on. Dravya yajna. What is tapo yajna? Tapaha yajnaha yesham tapasvinam. Te tapo yajna. When Vasishtha Ganapati Muni asked Sri Ramana Maharshi, what is tapas? Maharshi gave an out-of-box reply. Ganapati Muni had studied all Shastras. He was very knowledgeable. But he had not come across this new definition of tapaha that Ramana Maharshi gave. And Ramana was just in his 20s those days, maybe 21-year-old or so. Young boy. He wrote, or maybe he had begun to speak. Very briefly he said, when you are doing mantra japa, if you begin to pay attention to the source of the mantra, where from the mantra is arising from within you, to pay attention to the source of the mantra inside you is tapaha. Ganapati Muni was startled, and after hearing a few more answers to certain questions, it was Ganapati Muni who called this Venkatraman Ramana Maharshi. As you know, later this boy from Tiruchuli came to be known as Ramana Maharshi, and then devotees further called him Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. So tapaha can be of many kinds again. In that sense, it is not 14 yajnas here. This could be 30, this could be 50, this could be 80. A wide range of spiritual practices have been called yajna, and we are all encouraged to live a life marked by yajna. Yoga yajnaha, pranayama pratyahara adi lakshanaha yogaha. Sri Shankaracharya, straight goes to Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama. Pranayama is the fourth. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama. Pratyahara is the fifth out of the 8 limbs. So 4 and 5 probably, because he has taken first 1, 2, 3 as already belonging to some previous yajnas. Atma Sanyama Yoga Agni, or that Indriya Karmani Sanyama Agnishu, and there were the third, fourth, and fifth. But here in the Yoga Yajna, which is the 8th of the 14, he says, Pranayama Pratyahara Adi Lakshana Yoga. Tata Apare Swadhyaya Jnana Yajnascha. Somebody independently looking at Gita could club this Swadhyaya and Jnana together. Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna, one group. Then the number would fall to 13. Somewhere else, if you were to club things, it will fall to 12. So the number of yajnas given in these 5 shlokas could be 12 or 14 or 16 or 20 or just 10, depending on how you count. And grammar also permits that kind of classification. But Adi Shankara makes Swadhyaya a separate yajna, Jnana another separate yajna. Swadhyaya yatha vidhi rik adi abhyasaha. As a traditional teacher, Sri Shankaracharya's focus is especially on Vedic studies. He keeps in mind, especially those who are already into Vedic studies, Rigadi Abhyasa. Somewhere else he may have a broader context, but some places he goes very much into a traditional context. And let me tell you, some places Adi Shankaracharya goes into the context of sannyasis. He leaves behind brahmacharis, grahasthas, and vanaprasthis. He considers sannyasis as the context and gives some explanation to some portion of the way of the Gita as applicable to sannyasis. So, Rik Adi Abhyasa. But for you and me of modern age, we may not be into regular Vedic studies, but we study, let us say, even simpler works. Need not be even in Sanskrit. It could be even in our own mother tongues, Tamil or Hindi, Bengali or Gujarati. There are many great works we study daily and draw inspiration from them. That is Swadhyaya. Jnana Yajna is Jnanam Shastrartha Parijnanam. So going into the meaning, because Ragadi Abhyasa could be more recitation. Even today, there are homes in India mainly, and a few abroad also, where every day Brahmin boys spend hours just reciting. They don't know the meaning at all. You and I with Western education are so impatient to know the meanings. But the Shraddha, the faith, the sense of belonging, the sense of commitment that those families for generations have had does not permit them to ask even once, what is the meaning of this? Who cares? My job is to learn this sutta, to learn this portion. Once I was at a home in an ashram center in Shimoga. And next door was a small house, a simple house belonging to these Vedic priests, Vedika Brahmanas as they call. And I could see. Not that I have not heard, I have heard such things elsewhere, but that 1 week, I am here going into the meaning of Vedanta for an evening lecture, or 11 a.m. a small bunch was coming to study some other text. I'm always into what is the meaning, how do we explain this, how do we intellectual approach. But just across from my window, I could see their house. There was that time a 12-year-old boy who was sitting and reciting Veda mantras for 2-3 hours. And I used to say, does he not get bored? He doesn't know the meaning. No. And 10 years later, I again went there for another program. And then I asked, where is that 12-year-old boy? I couldn't recognize. This fellow was 22 now. He came from Germany that day. They said, this is the boy. You met this boy 10 years ago. Oh, this fellow, he looks with a good mustache and grown up. What are you doing? Like in Kannada, I asked, of course. Sir, I am now in Germany for last 1 year. Because some German university or some private organization appreciated his command on Vedic mantras. They took him there and he teaches there. Meanwhile, he has improved his English, But his focus was mainly on Ragadi Abhyasa. You may call him Swadhyaya Yajnaha. And of course, Sanskrit too. I remember that time when I met him again after 10 years, I asked him some Sanskrit grammar doubt. He just looked up like this, and then he quoted some Panini Sutra, or not Sutra, Panini is what they call Dhatu Pata. There is a work which gives all the verbal roots. And he said that is this verbal root takes those forms. Oh, so don't look down at memorizing. Sometimes we, excessively find fault with memorizing. Yes, we should not stop with memorizing. Indian education system is sometimes criticized for being too much into just memorizing. Yeah, just memorizing is not good. But memorizing has its own place too. Memorize slokas, mantras. Don't stop there. Get to know the meanings, at least some of them. Get to know their applications. In fact, these Vaidika Brahmanas, they don't go into meaning, but they learn mantras and then what is called prayoga. In South India, we call it prayoga. So they ask each other, have you learned prayoga? Prayoga means to perform various rituals. Whether it is marriage, third ceremony, antyeshti. Somebody dies, what are the rituals to be performed? What mantras are to be recited? What samagri material has to be brought? And how to do it without holding a book in hand. They just go do it. Don't you wonder sometimes how they remember all that? Because they have been doing from childhood. Anyway, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna. In Jnana Yajna, Shastra Artha. Swami Chinmayananji popularized Jnana Yajna. Tesham te Jnana Yajnascha. Yatayaha Yatanashilaha. Yatana. Yati is someone who is always into right effort. Even in his eightfold path, the Buddha mentions right effort. Right effort, yatna. Then you become a yati. Sanshita vrata. Samshita means tanukrita. Rather than putting on pounds because of their austere life, they become somewhat thin. You find that there is no extra fat in them. On the contrary, there is that austerity shows in their personality, the way they sit, the way they walk, in the way they talk. If they are good yatis, you will see, you will feel different vibration about them. And many places even today we see, especially as I mentioned before, these yogacharyas, not all of them, a good number of them are like that. In Bangalore, there is one yoga center, Niramaya Yoga, it's called. Amaya means disease. Niramaya means no disease, good health. So there is a teacher who is doing it with great devotion. Whenever I meet him, when I go to Bangalore, I feel he doesn't know all the Shastras as I do. But there is something about him, even about speech. He does not talk more than what is necessary. Whereas we intellectuals, you give us a topic, we go, boom. We have so much to say, and then you have to tell us then, okay, that's enough, sir. For today, that is enough. Thank you. We won't spare you. Because we have read so much, we have thought so much, we are always thinking. But we have our strengths, they have theirs. Maybe there has to be a blending and a confluence. We must develop, we must improve our discipline, and they should improve their knowledge base. Many times they just have no answer to some advanced question. They can bend their body, they can hold their breath, they can stand upside down. But ask them a question a little bit advanced, they just blink. So, different people have different strengths. Let's admire the positive side of everybody. Tanu kritani, tikshni kritani, vratani yesham. So their vrata, in fact, samshita is not to their body. Sorry, I just said talk more about the body. But here this adjective to vrata, their vows, their spiritual practices become more and more intense over a length of time. Over a length of time. Therefore, they are samshita vrata, intense. Now, 11, 12 and 13 are given in the next shloka. Apane juhvati pranam, prane apanam tatha apare, prana apana gati rudhva, pranayama parayana. Let's go straight into Shankara Bhāshya. Apane juhvati pranam. Apana vritti, and there is prana vritti. Vritti is a function, the function of out breath, the function of in breath. So what is this? Offering in breath into the out breath. 1 yajna, 11. Offering out breath into in breath. 2nd yajna. Then offering both the movements of inflow and outflow of air into the fire of control, self-control. So, even the Shankara Bhāshya does not fully explain. I remember I first taught this in 1990 or so. 1990, I had to teach much detail some of these to a bunch of brahmacharis and brahmacharinis, where I was not the acharya. Swami Purushottamanandaji was the acharya, and I was assisting him, and some portions I had to teach. So I blinked, I said, and then one of the students in the group, she was very knowledgeable, quite studious. She provided from some commentary from somewhere. He gave me additional information. There onward, there was never a doubt. You see, what is meant by offering prana into apana is, apana is a certain energy which is involved in breathing out. And in Yoga Shastra, this apana has its own center in our body, which is a little down in the abdomen. And prana, which is the energy associated with breathing in, as one expression, one manifestation. Prana is not just breathing in, but it is no more well known in the form of breathing in. This prana vritti has a center a little up in the chest, or maybe towards the throat. It's a little above. Once you know these two centers, you see, when you breathe out, as Adi Shankara says, apane juhvati pranam is breathing in. Puraka. Purakakhyam pranayamam kurvanti ityartha. Puraka is you fill your chest, fill your lungs, breathing in. When you breathe in, it is as though the air movement is in the direction of from the upper center, the center of prana, to or towards the lower center, the center of apana. So keeping in mind the two centers, apana center being a bit down towards the abdomen, prana center being a little up towards the throat, breathing in is a movement as though it's going from prana center into apana, as though prana is poured into apana. Apane juhvati pranam. Once you understand this, the second one, rechaka. You empty out your chest, you empty out your lungs, you breathe out. There it is as though the movement is from apana to prana. So prane apanam tatha apare. Shankara simply writes rechakakyam pranayamam kurvanti. So how is rechaka? Rechaka is the breathing out. Rechaka literally means emptying out. The adjective form many of you know is rikta. Rikta sthana is empty space. In a lot of subjects, they have a kind of question. Fill up the blanks. They would write, Dasharatha is the son of blank. You have to fill up Aja. Aja Maharaja son was Dasharatha. Dasharatha's son was Rama. Rama's sons were Lava and Kusha. It goes on. So Dasharatha was the son of Aja. So fill up the blanks. And in many Indian languages, the word used for a blank, empty space is Rikta Sthana. Rechaka is the adjective. Rikta is another past passive participle. Rechakakyam pranayamam kurvanti. So some are especially focused on regulating their puraka. Rest of it is okay. Much liberty is taken. Some are focused on regulating the puraka, filling. Some are on emptying. And some are on both. Prana apana gati mukanasikabhyam vayoho nirgamanam pranasya gati tad viparyayena adhogamanam apanasya gati. So various definitions. So when there is air going out, that is pranasya gati. Prana is in forefront, apana is following. And when adhogamanam, air is going down, it's going towards apana, and prana as though is following. So different ways of defining. So adhogamanam apanasya gati. Te prana apana gati. So in simpler terms, you are regulating both puraka and rechaka. And what it means is, Shankara summarizes, kumbhakakyam. When both of them are regulated, your attention is more towards holding the breath outside or holding the breath inside. Kumbhakakyam. So in Ashtanga Yoga, Rechaka, Puraka and Kumbhaka have been explained. Now the last yajna is taken up. We have in 30th verse. Apare niyata haraha pranan pranishu juhvati sarve pyete yajna vidaha yajna kshapita kalmasah. So this and 31st verse not only conclude but also pour or shower praise upon all these yajnas. We shall see and conclude this Bahuvidaha yajnaha in the next class. Namah Shivaya. Om Shivaya. Om Shivaya. Hari Om.